Back when I was in college, I was enrolled in a dual degree program. To graduate in 4 years, I had to take 6 courses every semester. As you can imagine, I was constantly buried in assignments, exams, and projects. That semester was especially hectic because I was also doing a part-time internship off campus. I lived in the campus dorm, and my roommate at the time was pretty noisy. He often watched movies with speakers on full blast until midnight. Since I couldn't concentrate in my room, I often went to the campus library, which thankfully stayed open until midnight. That day was Wednesday, my busiest day. I had 3 classes, my internship, and 2 exams the next day. So after my internship, around 8:30 p.m., I headed straight to the library. The campus library was quite spacious with many cozy study spots. I picked a small table tucked between 2 bookshelves, a spot not many people passed by. It was still a bit crowded at first, but as the night went on, it got quieter. By around 11 p.m., only a few people remained. While I was focused on reading slides on my laptop, I heard footsteps. A man, probably in his late 20s, walked past several empty tables and sat at the small table I was using diagonally across from me. It felt strange. So many empty spots, yet he chose this one? He looked at me and gave a small smile. I nodded politely and went back to studying, but a few minutes later he started talking, asking if I was taking any economics courses. I gave a brief reply, "No, sorry." But he kept complaining about a professor who gave surprise quizzes. I just responded minimally. Then he asked for my name. Feeling cautious, I gave him a fake name, Kayla. He smiled and said, "You have really beautiful eyes, Kayla." The vibe started to shift. His tone became too personal, and his gaze made me uncomfortable. I asked him the professor's name, and he replied softly, "Mr. Morgan, or Morgan something." When I checked the campus database, there was no professor by that name. My instincts kicked in. This guy isn't a student here. I pretended to go to the restroom, but instead walked straight to the security desk near the front entrance. I told the guard there was a suspicious man inside who was making me feel unsafe. The guard came back with me to the table and asked the man to show his student ID. He started getting nervous, searching through his wallet and pockets, but couldn't find it. He claimed he left it in his room. The guard asked which dorm he stayed in, and he stammered before saying, the one near the football field. That didn't add up, since the dorm near the field was only for freshmen, and he was clearly not a freshman. The guard then asked him to leave. I watched as he walked out the front door. Around midnight, I finished studying and decided to head back to the dorm. The path was quiet, with only the sound of my footsteps and the wind rustling. But a few steps away from the library, I felt like someone was following me. I heard footsteps behind me, matching my pace. I turned, no one. But when I sped up, the footsteps sped up too. I started running. My backpack was heavy, and I was out of breath. When I looked back again, I saw the same man from the library, running toward me. I tried to scream, but he tackled me and covered my mouth with his hand. "I won't hurt you if you stay quiet," he whispered in a threatening tone. I kicked and struggled with all my strength, but he was much stronger. He dragged me toward some dark bushes near an old building. At that moment, I thought I was going to die. But somehow, I managed to free my mouth from his hand and screamed as loudly as I could. My scream echoed through the quiet night. 2 students, who happened to be walking nearby, heard me and came running. The man let go of me and bolted into the trees and bushes. The students rushed over, calming me down as I was shaking and panicking. They quickly called campus police. We returned to the library, and the security guard immediately recognized the man. His face had been clearly captured on CCTV. Within an hour, his photo had been circulated through the campus network. That very night, he was caught at a 24-hour coffee shop not far from campus. After that incident, it took me a long time to feel safe again. I still get anxious when I'm alone at night, and the trauma didn't just disappear overnight, but I'm grateful to be alive. And I'll never ignore my instincts again, because that night, My gut feeling saved my life. We moved to a new city when I was around 7 years old. Everything before that felt like part of a separate life, a childhood that slowly faded from my memory. But there's one memory that still lingers. A strange, hazy experience I believe happened when I was about 5 or 6. Back then, we lived not far from the city library. My mom and I often went there, usually with my little brother, who was still a toddler. That day, we first went to the shopping mall. My mom spent quite a while shopping, and as usual, we stopped by a small food place to get some ice cream. I clearly remember I was still holding the ice cream when we arrived at the library. Inside the library, there was a kids' computer area where my mom would usually let me play while she took care of her own errands. After getting bored with the computer games, I started walking around the children's book aisles, looking for those puzzle picture books, my favorite at the time. The kids' section was in a corner of the building and was pretty quiet that day. As I passed one of the aisles, I heard a soft noise from behind me. Psst! I turned around. No one was there. Just tall shelves and the wall behind them, but then half a man's face peeked out from behind the bookshelf. He grinned and said, "Come find me." Instead of being scared, I giggled. I thought it was just a game. He repeated it again, appearing and disappearing while saying the same thing. Then he asked if I was looking for something. I told him I was looking for puzzle picture books. He said he would help me and reached for my hand. We walked through the quiet aisles and finally found a few of the books I was looking for. I picked one with a treasure hunt theme and he invited me to look at it together. We sat at one of the tables near the computers and started flipping through the pages. As we looked at the pictures, he began asking me all sorts of questions. The one I remember the most was, "Who did you come here with?" I answered, "With my mom and little brother." After a while, he said there was a play area downstairs. I didn't know there was a basement in the library, but he seemed sure and said we could bring the book down there. He opened a door leading to a narrow staircase and invited me to go down. Below, there was a small room with a few toys, like a Lego table and some old dolls. We entered, and he placed the book on the table, but the atmosphere started to change. He told me to play with the toys, but his tone began to sound strange. I started to feel uneasy. Then a voice came over the speaker above. "Kevin, please come to the front desk. Your mother is looking for you." As soon as the voice came through, the man turned off the lights. Total darkness. Then, in a quiet voice, he said, "Let's play hide and seek." That's when I truly started to panic. I began calling for my mom. He told me to be quiet, his voice turning harsh as he got closer. I could feel his breath as he nearly reached me in the dark. Luckily, I managed to escape. I ran, bumping into chairs and toys, until I reached the stairs. I climbed as fast as I could, feeling like something was chasing me out of the darkness. When I got back to the main floor, I ran straight to the front desk and saw my mom there with a library staff member. She immediately hugged me tight. I told her there was a man who took me downstairs. After that, everything became a blur. I remember the police came. They checked the basement, questioned me, but I never saw the man again. He just vanished. I haven't talked about this much with my mom, and she rarely brings it up either. But sometimes when I walk through a library or go down any basement stairs, that childhood fear comes back. And that voice, "Come find me," still echoes in my mind now and then. I work as a fast food delivery guy, and that night I received an order that I was supposed to deliver to an old library on the outskirts of town. It might sound strange, but some old buildings in this area are still used for public purposes, including this library that stays open 24 hours for late-night researchers. The ride was about 15 minutes from my workplace, and by the time I arrived, it was almost midnight. The building was large and a bit creepy, standing alone among the trees. The lights outside were dim, and the front door was slightly open, as if it had been waiting for someone to walk in. I got off my bike, grabbed the food, and walked closer. As I reached the door, I called out, "Excuse me, food delivery." From inside, I heard an old man's raspy voice reply, "Come around to the back. I'm sitting down. My legs hurt." I hesitated. Something didn't feel right, but I figured maybe he was in a wheelchair or something, so I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The interior of the library was dark and silent. Tall shelves stretched out endlessly, and the aisles seemed never-ending. Only a few desk lamps in the corners provided any light. I could hear slow, dragging footsteps coming from the left aisle, the same direction the man's voice had come from earlier. Suddenly, the front door behind me slammed shut. I spun around, startled, but no one was there. I heard the sound of a key turning. I was locked in. My heart began pounding. The footsteps in the aisle started to quicken. I immediately ran down the right aisle and found an old wooden door that was slightly ajar. Without thinking, I went in and shut it tight behind me. It turned out to be a room for storing old books, dark and dusty, but thankfully there was a lock on the inside of the door. I locked it right away. The footsteps stopped right outside. The handle started shaking. The man was trying to get in. I looked around, searching for a way out. Behind the tall shelves, I spotted a small high window on the wall. I climbed up using a stack of boxes and tried to open it. It took some effort, but I managed to get it open. As I was climbing out, I heard new sounds from the hallway. More than one person now. There were whispers and quick footsteps. As soon as I got out and fell into the bushes outside, I didn't look back. I ran as fast as I could to my motorbike and sped away without stopping. When I got back to work, I immediately reported what happened to my supervisor. Thankfully, he didn't mind that the food hadn't been fully delivered. To this day, I still don't know who that man was, or why there were several people inside the library that night. But one thing's for sure, I'm never taking a delivery to that place again.